Imagine, if you would, a world where we are told books are amazing tales that teach us important lessons. One where we are told that we should be reading more, and yet, when your English teacher tells you that the class will be covering a book for the next few weeks, they hold it up. Shakespeare! You are about to enter another dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A journey into a wondrous land of imagination. Next stop, the reading log. Yeah, so anyway, school reading fucking sucks, and that kind of pisses me off. Hi, my name is jELeeoo, also known as Johann Birch, author of that book right there, What's Your Problem? Available on Amazon.com. Link in the description. And these here are books. Some of which, most of which, I gathered the ones from my shelf specifically, that could be read in school. And I love all of the books included in this little list. But here's the thing. I didn't read them in school. I read them in my own time, on my own, with my own money, of my own accord. And I think I like them better because of that. And I want to talk about that. I'm so good at videos. Reading is really boring. Or so I thought at first. See, I think everybody my age thinks that reading is really boring, specifically because of school. And that's sort of a problem considering how much school teaches us what to do and not to do. Now, frankly, I could spend like 2 hours in front of this camera just talking about how the school system is pretty messed up and how it teaches us to do stuff. But let's not discuss that right now. Let's talk about reading, because I want to promote my book, okay? I'm just going to put it out there, like, the biggest reason why we are so discouraged from reading because of how school forces us to read is simply because a kid will pretty much instantly have a negative opinion of something if they are forced to do it, especially if they have no, like, interest in it at first, and especially if they don't see anything that could be gained from it. Now, I don't want to be mean to kids out there, but they're pretty simple-minded. Of course, I'm talking like 3rd grade right now, just for context. Do you really think a 3rd grader is gonna try and pursue a life of philosophy to see what they can gain from it? No. They're gonna want to vote for freaking Haley from 5th grade to be student body president so they can get the lollipops they were promised from her campaign. And seeing that what we gain from books is an intangible thing, that being a lesson of sorts, an experience of sorts, and also just like entertainment, yeah, no duh, kids aren't gonna be interested when, you know, better stimuli exist. Simply put, a kid needs to explore their interest for themselves and not forced upon them. This is why I often have a problem with like parents forcing their kid to do like a sport. Like, if they're clearly not having a fun time and not that interested, you shouldn't force them to go. Only if they show an interest at first should you be like, do you want to do soccer lessons if you're interested in soccer? I found my love for writing and content creation not because of school, but because of the movies I watched as a kid as well as the YouTube videos I watched as a kid. My parents cannot stand football, and yet my brother loves it because he found it of his own interest. And then when he got into high school, he started playing football. Oh my, and don't get me started on how the reading log affects all this. This is my transition into talking about how the reading log affects all this. Yo, can my stomach like stop growling for 2 seconds? Alright, it's not that serious, little bro. For those unaware, a reading log is a little sheet of paper given to you for the week where you basically just report what you've read. You write down the book you read, what chapter or pages, and then you have to like summarize it to prove that you actually read it. And it's meant to like encourage kids to read on their own time outside or something. And the reason why I'm explaining it is because I know not all schools had one, and it was mostly just ones that like just make you a go-getter. For elementary and middle school, I went to a charter school, and it had like a lot higher standards, and one of those standards was a reading log for years 3 through 5. Now, let me just state again that that's pretty not good if you want people to get into reading, because 1, you're forcing them to do it. Now, when we're reading stuff in school that we don't want to read, it's at least tolerable because the negativity we associate with that isn't with reading itself, but more of just school itself. But now that this experience is outside of school, it is now directly interfering with the daily activities of a kid. Not only stuff like doing other homework, but also just chilling on the TV, watching what's still on, Teen Titans Go? And I really hope I don't need to explain why that's pretty detrimental to the development of a kid. Like, in this day and age, I think we all know why. And frankly, this is just like a problem with the education system as a whole, but that's a whole nother can of worms, so I don't feel like opening that today. It's funny, reading logs are meant to teach us to read more and enjoy reading more, Yet the only thing it taught me how to do was lie, and be damn good at it. I'm not joking, for the entirety of my reading log years, I literally took a Diary of a Wimpy Kid book, opened it up to a random page, looked at the drawing, described that, boom, reading done for the day. Not to mention that not everybody learns well through reading. Sometimes it's better to look at pictures for another person. Sometimes it's better to hear words being explained to them. Again, this is a whole like visual versus auditory learner kind of thing. I myself am a visual learner, but that doesn't mean that I hate books just because I learn better when there's a visual example. But of course I didn't know this at the time when I was being forced to read boring ass books in school. Speaking of boring ass books in school, 9 times out of 10, if you were to ask someone if they enjoyed shit that they were forced to read in school, 9 times out of 10 they will only say The Outsiders. And I mean, to be fair, The Outsiders is one of those exceptions of books that you read in school that are actually pretty good no matter what. In fact, I have a copy on the way right now. But that's like 1 out of 20 books we're forced to read in school. 10 of those 20 is fucking Shakespeare. At the end of the day, what we were forced to read in school is just boring. Like there's no easy way around it. Almost everybody agrees that it is boring as hell. And if those books end up having movies, chances are we'll just end up watching that instead of actually reading it on our own time because 1, that's way easier, and 2, it's more visually stimulating, and to a young person, that's everything. We're also forced to read a lot of plays, which are very different from normal-ass literature, and it's way more confusing and boring and lamer, and it often makes us associate the two together, despite them being super different, just leading to a more negative reputation of books like these. I will now list some books we are often forced to read in school and complain about them. Dystopian novels as a whole always convey the same idea of anti-authoritarianism and anti-censorship, all the same way, but they're all terribly worded with the exception of 1984 and Animal Farm. So any other dystopian novel? Also, Animal Farm is a great exception specifically because it's based on a real event that actually happened in history, and that is the example we're meant to follow of what not to do. Like Hunger Games? Divergent? Lord of the Flies, although technically not a dystopian novel. Listen, I do not need to read an entire book to know that British kids are rat bastards. Fahrenheit 451. Books are boring as hell. I'm glad they're being burned. Ray Bradbury, or Bradbury, however you say your name. The Giver. Also, many of the books I just listed are of the young adult genre, and let me just say that if you try and market your book for a younger generation, then you better be a part of that younger generation, or else you're just gonna come off as pretentious and preachy to us younger generation folk. The Odyssey. Even if you like it, chances are you're not gonna be able to finish it within the allotted class time that was like assigned to focus on the book, even if you were to read on your own, because it's a huge ass book. Like, I didn't mind it, but there were a lot of boring parts, but even then, I never knew how it ended, specifically because we just ran out of time to talk about it and we had to move on to another book. A Wrinkle in Time. It has interesting ideas, sure, but it's absolutely terrible for anybody who's better as a visual learner. And darling, the movie ain't gonna help anytime soon. Number the Stars. We already know that Nazis are bad from the cajillion fucking World War II history lessons we have to sit through, so conveying it to us in the most boring way possible is not gonna make us feel any different. We already get it. It's just gonna put us to sleep. I shouldn't say it with considering the previous context. That's out of pocket. That sounds like pretty bad. Oh, also, stop trying to convince me that Lois Lowry is a good author. She's not. With Hiroshima, it's literally just the same as Number the Stars, but in a different context. And for Edgar Allan Poe's shit, once you've read one of his poems, you sort of read, like, all of them. Like, you get the point. Any further reading is just exercise at that point. The real kicker to all of this is that if I wasn't forced to read this in school, I probably wouldn't, like, hate it as much as I do. At the least, I'd be indifferent, and at the most, I would find books that I enjoy. But now, because I was forced to read it, and forced to do stupid stuff about it, and forced to write stupid book reports, I can now say that I very passionately hate The Giver, or Number the Stars, or Lord of the Flies, so on and so forth. Another kicker to this is that, like, the actual good books you read, like really good ones that are often in late high school, you often don't have to read because depending on your career path, you don't have to really take classes that will force you to read them at that point in high school. That's why I never read The Great Gatsby or The Catcher in the Rye in school, and instead I had to read those on my own time. I say had to. I did it because I wanted to. And what's funniest of all is that I've gone this long without mentioning him. Shakespeare is the most boring stuff you could ever possibly read in your entire schooling life. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I was forced to read The Twelfth Night, Hamlet, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet twice because I went from a charter school to a high school. Awesome, I love communication. And I also had to read The Tempest. And they all suck so much. I seriously do not know why schools love the guy so much. Almost everybody you ask outside of a school environment agrees that it is subpar writing at best. And I'm not talking about like your average day citizen. I'm talking about people who like reading books, who like writing books. They all agree that he is boring and subpar and outdated. It might have been the shit during the freaking 1200s, but not anymore. Actually, wait, wasn't he like around during the 1600s? Like, see, I'm so passionate about I'm getting my history facts wrong. That's how you know this is bad. The only story of his worth reading is Hamlet, but there's no point now because The Lion King exists. And I know it sounds weird, but The Lion King's main inspiration was Hamlet, and The Lion King just gets the stuff across way better. It does to be or not to be way better. I mean, Twelfth Night is also alright, but like, it's mid at best. And stop thinking Romeo and Juliet is a good love story. It's stupid. It is so incredibly stupid. The characters are stupid. The plot is stupid. Everything is a dumb decision. I just seriously cannot understand why the Board of Education is so horny for this guy when he just makes the most boring, awful, terrible stuff imaginable. Meanwhile, schools want to drop books like To Kill a Mockingbird and The Catcher in the Rye, which are not only more recent books, so they relate to us better on a more fundamental level, but they also tackle issues that are pretty important for people to learn as they're growing up. Both teach us about the loss of innocence that comes with age. It explains them in pretty decent ways that help us understand these weird feelings that we feel that are at first indescribable. And you don't even have to like these books to understand that. You don't have to like Catcher in the Rye, but you at least understand where Holden Caulfield is coming from when he says that he just hates school and doesn't want to grow up and why he's such a rebel. And you understand it on a fundamental level because when you read that in school, you are at that stage in your life. And also, To Kill a Mockingbird also has a different message of not being racist, and it's the best at conveying that message. But no, we're too busy talking about how ironic it is that Romeo killed himself. What a fucking loser. Alright, I want to wrap this up now by talking about some books that I had to read in school that I thought were actually pretty good. Obviously, The Outsiders was just spectacular. It's the best book you could possibly read in school. Even taking like the themes you learn in the book out of account, it's still just like a great story that's entertaining. It does suck that it has a movie, cause you'll be more encouraged to watch that, but hey, at least the movie has Johnny Depp when he was younger. Of Mice and Men, I actually already own a copy of this because it's that good. I loved it. It's a good story and it's ridiculously short, so yeah. I got it on sale at Barnes & Noble. Obviously, again, The Catcher in the Rye and To Kill a Mockingbird are pretty good. Great Gatsby's pretty good. And also, like, anything by Mark Twain is amazing. I love that guy. And the funny thing is, I only ever read The Prince and the Pauper in school. I only ever read The Prince and the Pauper in school. Stuff like Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer, Roughing It. I read that on my own time, and I found it pretty enjoyable, and I could see myself enjoying it if I was forced to read it in a school setting, although that's kind of hypocritical the way I say it, but it would be better if you don't read it on school time. It'd be better if you read it for yourself, but only if you're interested in it. I'm just repeating the whole point of this video. Oh, and one last thing I want to talk about is, I know a lot of people have a problem with The Catcher in the Rye, understandable, but it is a really good story about growing up and how much it sucks and it's easy to relate to, but I think it's really funny that people who like this book only really like it because they didn't have to read it in school. Again, the education system is kind of stupid. Also, considering this entire book is about a man, like, not wanting to go to school, I think it's pretty ironic, ain't it? Of course, with most of these books, I've enjoyed it outside of a school setting because I decided to pursue them on my own time. You know, it's funny, when I was well done with reading anything for a class setting, when I was, like, in my last year of college, not even taking an English class, I just, like, I was so excited to, like, actually read books on my own time because I read a book that you don't get taught in school. I read Ham on Rye, and that was, like, so well worded, and I loved it. But I mean, hey, we gotta know why the door is colored red, right, Shakespeare? Am I saying that school should just stop forcing you to read everything at all, period? You just shouldn't read in school at all? Well, actually, yeah, that is kind of the point I'm making, but no. It is important that they show you what reading can do. Yes, I believe that 100%. You should be able to be forced... You should be forced to read something in school. But it shouldn't be the same repetitive, boring stuff that you always read, that you learn life lessons from, that you've already learned lessons for in different classes. I know why rulers are important. I don't need Lord of the Flies. I have a history class. It's funny because most history classes will just immediately mitigate any need for a book you read in English class. Did I say mitigate or negate? I meant to say negate, but I think I said mitigate. And please, stop telling us about Shakespeare. Dedicate a week to him at most, and then move the fuck on. I hate him. I hate him so much. If I could travel back in time, I'd pulverize his face. I'm telling you. Okay, you can do Macbeth. And maybe Hamlet. But anything else is a big no-no, especially Romeo and Juliet. That's like his worst story. Maybe throw in something else in the meantime, like a fun creative writing assignment. This is in a pre-high school context, by the way. I know you kind of have to do them for high school. Maybe some poetry instead. We don't really focus on poetry all that much except for Edgar Allan Poe. Let's try something else. Hey, maybe try What's Your Problem by Johann Birch. I don't know. Maybe you can get it on Amazon right now. It's on sale on September 21st. Disclaimer, that was a joke. Don't actually take my book serious for school consideration, but still buy it because it's cool. Please buy my book. And yeah. That's pretty much all I had to say, really. It only took me, been recording for 40 minutes now. Awesome. Well, anyways, that was the video. If you liked it, please leave a like, please subscribe, please leave a comment. Actually, you know what? Subscribing and liking are optional, but you have to leave a comment, okay? Please comment something. If you have a book recommendation, please comment it down below. I'm open to anything. Remember to check out the banger music at the bottom of the description. And most importantly, remember to buy my book. It's on Amazon. It's $10 for paperback, $6 for Kindle ebook. However, the price will increase after September 21st. And, yeah. That's pretty much it. Alright, bye-bye.